Hello and welcome to the Friday edition of the Post-Gazette Penguins podcast. I'm your host, King Jemison, and Happy New Year, everybody. The Penguins are certainly enjoying their start to 2026 because they picked up a win on New Year's Day last night, a 4-3 shootout victory over Detroit. Kris Letang rifled home the game winner on his 1,200th NHL game, so he, as he said, he was able to cap off the milestone and make it something memorable. And Pittsburgh's now on a 3-game winning streak. That's all since the holiday break. So starting Sunday in Chicago. And that 3-game winning streak is the team's longest since they won 4 straight in October. So happy times in Penguins land. Erik Karlsson and Rickard Rakell were just named to Team Sweden for the Olympics. Sidney Crosby already knew he was on Team Canada, but he found out who his teammates were on Wednesday. It's definitely been an intriguing start to the year that I think has both Penguins and their fans feeling a little bit better about the direction of the team. And we're going to talk about that on today's show. But first, I want to let you know that this show is presented by FanDuel, where you can bet on all the NHL action. And there's a big one tonight, folks. It's the Winter Classic in Miami, a place where winter doesn't even exist, but apparently they're going to do a Winter Classic there. That's going to be on TNT tonight at 8 p.m. The Rangers are traveling down to Miami to take on the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, who are minus 142 favorites on FanDuel. You can bet the Panthers at minus 1.5 goals at plus 172. So back to the Penguins. Last night's game was a really, really fun one in which they showcased a ton of resiliency. They jumped out to a 2-0 lead with 2 really impressive Sidney Crosby goals. We were quickly on hat trick watch, 6 minutes into the game. And then the Penguins got bit by this horrible case of the penalty woes. They spent half of the first period killing penalties, ended up taking 16 penalty minutes as a whole during the game. I think there were certainly plays that looked like they could have been called Detroit penalties, and yet Detroit ended up just taking 6 minutes of penalties. And some of those penalties on Pittsburgh didn't seem super clear-cut to me, but Pittsburgh was able to overcome it. The Penguins were super resilient. They got a go-ahead goal in the third period with about 4 minutes to go from Blake Lizotte. They ended up giving up another power play goal on the 8th power play opportunity for the Red Wings just moments later, and yet they rebounded again to pick up the overtime victory, improving their OT record to 3-9, and it was a milestone-filled night. Not only did Kris Letang pick up his 1,200th NHL game, making him the 40th NHL defenseman to ever reach that mark, including just 3 active defensemen, but also Erik Karlsson had 2 assists to give him 900 for his career, a nice little gift before the real entree for him, which was being named to Team Sweden today, where he will try to earn another Olympic medal. He won silver in 2014 in Sochi and was tied for the tournament high with 8 points there. So I want to talk a little bit about this entire 3-game winning streak and sort of some things that have gone right for the Penguins and what it could lead to moving forward. So the first thing that I think stands out to me that since the holiday break, I mean, we know the team is playing with more energy. They look like they're enjoying themselves again. They look like they have their legs again. They've benefited from playing a team on the second night of a back-to-back for 3 straight games when they had the night off the previous day. That's pretty crazy, and they should definitely send a thank you card to the NHL schedule makers. But nonetheless, they have looked like a different and a much better team since the break, and obviously the 3-game winning streak with a goal differential of, I believe, 16-7 bears that out. But what is leading to that? Well, I think it starts with the depth of scoring being back. I count 8 different goal scorers this week. I mean, just last night, you had a 4th-line tally from Blake Lizotte. You had Kris Letang scoring after he had not been putting up goals in a while. And then, of course, you had 2 from Sidney Crosby. Earlier this week, it was the 2nd-line show. Justin Brazeau had a hat trick in Chicago and another goal 2 nights later against Carolina. Anthony Mantha had a goal in Chicago and then 2 more against Carolina. So those 2 guys combined for 7 goals in 2 games. Mantha did pick up an assist last night against Detroit, but they were not able to keep up their goal-scoring ways. But you're seeing depth of scoring down the lineup. The 3rd line still has not been able to add their name to the goal-scoring sheet we'll see if that changes now that Yegor Chinakhov is a part of that third line. At least he was Thursday alongside Ben Kindle and Rucker McGroarty. I think the power and the quick release on his shot could translate some of the offense that third line has been generating into goals, because we know how many chances they've had, and they just have not been able to get one in the back of the net. But the second line has just been tremendous with Tommy Novak at the center. I think that line gave me pause when I first saw it with Novak, Brazeau, and Mantha. And it wasn't necessarily producing early in Evgeny Malkin's absence, but it has come on in a big way after the holiday break. And the first line also looks really, really good. The top line has been excellent. Obviously, Crosby got those 2 goals yesterday. One was on the power play, but they've been generating even more chances than that. Rakell and Rust, I believe, both hit posts against Carolina, or at least had excellent chances that either just missed or were saved. Rakell had a great assist to Crosby against Carolina. That first line is really getting going, and we know that they're going to have to be the ones to drive the offense in some of these games. So the depth of scoring, I think, is the first story of this 3-game winning streak, and that certainly has something to do with just the renewed energy that this team has taken since Christmas. But they've also gotten a lot of help from their goaltenders. Pittsburgh's goaltending, we know it was really the reason for their 8-2-2 start in October, which included the team's longest winning streak of the season, which was 4 games from October 16th to October 23rd. Well, now this 3-game winning streak has a lot to do with goaltending as well. Listen, the Penguins had one of the worst save percentages in the league for much of December as they struggled just before the Tristan Jarry trade, and particularly after the Tristan Jarry trade. And the defense was doing Stuart Skinner and Artur Shilov's no favors. And by the way, I want to take a quick aside. This is a show where we want to be honest, and we want to correct the things that we got wrong. And we talked, Jason Mackey and I, last episode about the potential for Karlsson and Rakell on Team Sweden at the Olympics, and what we knew to be true, which was Sidney Crosby being at the Olympics. We neglected to mention Artur Shilovs, who will be representing Team Latvia. He was actually named to their initial roster over the summer. And, you know, that's a tremendous opportunity for him, and he's starting to play a lot better here in the NHL as well. He's now won 3 straight games. He saved 3.6 goals above expected Thursday night against Detroit. I think his stats weren't as amazing for his win over Chicago, but he was really solid throughout that game. And, you know, we know that was a 7-3 victory for Pittsburgh, but it was not a game where they played 4 goals better than the Blackhawks. And in fact, the Blackhawks' last goal was with less than a second remaining. But because Shilovs was so much better than who Chicago had in net, that's where that margin of victory came from. And then his shootout victory December 21st against Montreal, I think that's what really got all this going. He made some big saves in overtime. He stopped a couple shootout attempts, and that set the stage for this winning streak now. We thought maybe when we were talking on Wednesday that you might want to ride, or excuse me, when I was talking on Monday, I talked about how you might want to ride Artur Shilovs because we just simply had not seen it from Stuart Skinner since he'd been a Pittsburgh Penguin after that mid-December Tristan Jarry trade. Shows how much I know because he went out and absolutely balled out on Tuesday night, posted a .964 save percentage, holding the potent Carolina Hurricanes offense to just 1 goal. He made a lot of really big saves on breakaways. He just looks super comfortable. We know what type of guy he is in the locker room. He's just a great presence to be around. That much is clear already. And I think that ability to get comfortable quickly allowed him to finally pick up his first win as a Penguin. And we'll see who Dan Muse chooses to start in net tomorrow. That would be Saturday at Detroit. That game is at noon on ABC with Jason Mackey going to be in the Motor City to cover that one. I would imagine that he's going to go back to Skinner and continue this rotation. It worked early in the season with Shilovs and Jarry. Both played well, pretty much alternating games. And at least right now, it's working between Skinner and Shilovs, pretty much alternating games. The last thing that I think needs to be mentioned from this 3-game winning streak is the penalty kill. Because if the goalies are back, well, the penalty kill is well and truly back, folks. So much of that has to do with one player, and that is Blake Lizotte, who scored a go-ahead goal Thursday night against Detroit. That goal with about 4 minutes to go could have been a game winner. Instead, Detroit scores on the power play a little bit later, but certainly was a huge and well-deserved tally for him because he has played so well since returning from injury against Chicago. He missed 9 games before the holiday break. And these stats kind of blew my mind. When Blake Lizotte went out of the lineup, and this was after a December 7th game against Dallas, Pittsburgh ranked 4th in the NHL in penalty kill percentage at 85%. In the games that he missed, in the time span that he missed, they dropped to 27th in the league at 69% with him out. Now, we know that's not all one player, but we saw the impact jump back the other way as soon as he returned because they're back up to about 82% since the holiday break and killed 6 of 8 penalties against the Red Wings, who came in with one of the top power plays in the league. That just says so much about Blake Lizotte and the player that he is, and you just instantly notice him. Anytime he's on the ice, you see his impact. And other players see that, and they talk about it glowingly. Dan Muse was gushing in his praise of Blake Lizotte after a Thursday's win. And so he had his fingerprints all over not only that Red Wings game where he scored a goal, but also the wins over Chicago and Carolina earlier in the week. And Pittsburgh's penalty kill was put in some really tough positions against the Red Wings. As I mentioned, there were some calls that I think Penguins fans were not happy about. They adapted the "Let's Go Pens" chant to a "Ref, you suck" yesterday, and Brian Rust got an abusive officials minor for letting his frustrations be known. But as a team, they did not let those frustrations boil over into a poor performance, and I think that says a lot about the resiliency and the character of this group that suddenly is looking pretty solid. They're still just out of a playoff spot, 1 point removed from the wild card position in the Eastern Conference. They're going to have 2 more opportunities this weekend to pick up points on Eastern Conference teams. They play in Detroit on Saturday and in Columbus on Sunday. Jason Mackey will be there for the Post-Gazette for both games. So that's going to do it for us on the Post-Gazette Penguins podcast. Flying solo today, but there was plenty to talk about. I'll be up and practicing Cranberry shortly, so hopefully we'll hear from Erik Karlsson and Rickard Rakell about what being named to Team Sweden means to them, and we'll hear a little bit more about how the team is feeling with their current 3-game winning streak. Please like and subscribe wherever you're seeing this. We will be back on this feed pretty much every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And really, please subscribe at post-gazette.com because that's the best of our work. I have a story up this morning about Thursday's win and how it showed the resiliency of the team. And, of course, the recap of the game last night and all of our other Penguins coverage can be found there. So go and check that out. And until then, Happy New Year, Pittsburgh, and have a great day.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.